Most people don't believe me when I tell them I bought my cabin for a quarter. Yeah, you heard that right. 25 cents, not 25,000, not 2,500. A literal coin I could have used for a vending machine. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like the cabin just fell into my lap. It was part of an old county land auction, one of those dusty properties buried under a mountain of back taxes and legal red tape. Nobody wanted it. Everyone thought it was worthless, too much hassle, too far gone. But me? I saw the history, the potential, and most of all, the location. Nestled deep in the woods, right by the edge of a private lake, the cabin might have looked run down from the outside, but it had bones of oak and a story that went back generations. For me, it wasn't just property, it was a dream. My dream. And for 25 cents it was mine, fair and square. But here's the thing about dreams. Someone's always waiting to turn them into a nightmare. Enter the HOA. At first, I didn't even realize there was a homeowners association nearby. The cabin sat on its own lot, outside what anyone would reasonably call a neighborhood. But apparently a group of self-appointed enforcers had decided the entire lakeside belonged to their community. And when they found out about my bargain purchase, they didn't congratulate me. They didn't welcome me. They set their sights on stealing it. It started small. A friendly knock on the door. A man in a polo shirt with an HOA logo handing me a packet of rules and regulations. He smiled, told me I needed to pay a $300 initiation fee and monthly dues. I laughed. You've got the wrong guy. This property isn't under your HOA. But that smile vanished fast. His voice dropped and he said something I'll never forget. Everything around this lake belongs to us. If you don't cooperate, you won't be staying here long. I shrugged it off at first. Bullies talk big, but within weeks I realized they weren't bluffing. Letters started showing up in my mailbox. Violations for everything from the color of my shutters to the length of my grass. And then came the bombshell. The HOA filed paperwork claiming they were seizing my cabin and appraising it at $10 million. That's right. My 25-cent cabin suddenly labeled a $10 million community asset, and they thought they were going to take it from me. When I first read the so-called notice of seizure, I thought it had to be a joke. $10 million. For a cabin that I literally bought at a county auction for 25 cents, the paper looked official. Letterhead, signatures, legal jargon, but it reeked of desperation. The HOA president, a sharp-eyed woman named Karen, was behind it. She strutted up to my cabin the next morning, papers in hand, acting like she was the sheriff of the whole county. "You've been assessed," she declared, waving the letter in my face. "This property belongs to the Lakeview Community HOA, and we've appraised it at $10 million. Either you pay your dues and surrender your rights, or we take it." I laughed out loud. "Lady, I bought this place at a government auction. It's mine, legally recorded at the courthouse. You've got no claim here." That's when her mask slipped. Her voice got sharp, her face twisted, and she hissed, "We always win. People who fight us regret it." I slammed the door in her face, but if I thought that would be the end of it, I was dead wrong. The HOA went into overdrive. Suddenly, I was getting hit with fines for illegal renovations, even though I hadn't touched a nail. They mailed me a $15,000 bill for failure to landscape common areas that weren't even mine. And when I ignored them, they escalated. One night, I came back from town to find bright orange stickers plastered on my cabin windows, "Condemned by order of the HOA." They'd even chained my gate shut, as if they had the right to lock me out of my own land. It didn't stop there. Karen organized a community meeting where she stood in front of my neighbors, spinning lies about me, claiming I'd stolen the cabin illegally, that I was a squatter, and that the HOA had every right to seize their asset. The worst part? Some people believed her. Rumors spread fast. I got dirty looks at the local diner. One guy muttered "freeloader" under his breath as I walked past. Karen knew exactly what she was doing, turning the community against me so no one would stand in my corner when they made their move. But here's what she didn't know. I'd done my homework. Before I even set foot in that cabin, I had every deed, every transfer of ownership, every tax record neatly documented. Not only did I legally own the cabin, but the land beneath it had never been part of their HOA jurisdiction. They thought they could bully me into submission, inflate some imaginary price tag, and scare me into walking away. But the more they pushed, the more determined I became. Because this wasn't just about a cabin anymore, it was about principle, about standing up to a corrupt HOA that thought intimidation and fake paperwork could rewrite the law. So when Karen showed up with her seizure team a week later, clipboards, cameras, and even a tow truck, I was ready. It was a Saturday morning when the HOA made their big move. I woke up to the sound of engines outside my gate. 3 SUVs, a flatbed tow truck, and about half a dozen people in matching HOA polos. And right at the front was Karen, strutting like she was leading a parade. They cut the chain they'd put on my gate the week before and marched right onto my property. Clipboards in hand, cameras rolling, they started snapping photos of my cabin, as if they were documenting evidence for a crime scene. The tow truck driver even backed up toward my shed, like they planned to haul off my belongings. Karen's voice carried across the yard. Under Section 14 of the HOA Code, this cabin is hereby seized as community property. Valued at $10 million, it will be held until the rightful debt is paid. I stepped out onto the porch with my arms crossed, calm, collected, because I knew something Karen didn't. "Karen," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you're trespassing. This property isn't part of your HOA and you have no legal authority here." She smirked. "We'll let the court decide that." "Good," I replied, "because the court already has." That's when I pulled out a thick binder I'd been keeping ready. Inside was every scrap of documentation I'd gathered. The county deed from the auction, the recorded transfer of ownership, the tax receipts, and my personal favorite, letter from the county zoning board confirming in writing that my land sat outside of any HOA jurisdiction. I held it up so everyone could see. This isn't just my word against yours, it's legally binding proof. And if you don't believe me, we can call the sheriff right now. Karen faltered. For the first time I saw her confidence slip. Her little army of HOA board members shifted uncomfortably, whispering to each other. The tow truck driver froze, clearly realizing he'd signed up for the wrong job, but I wasn't done. "Here's another thing," I continued, flipping to the next section of my binder. "This notice you sent me, claiming my cabin was worth $10 million, that's fraud. And I've already forwarded it to the county prosecutor's office, which means the next seizure happening around here won't be my cabin. It'll be your HOA bank accounts when they hit you with fines and lawsuits." Karen's face turned red. She sputtered, waving her arms, but her people weren't buying it anymore. A couple of them lowered their clipboards. The tow truck backed out of my driveway, and then, like the final nail in her coffin, a county sheriff's cruiser rolled up. I'd called them earlier that morning, knowing Karen wouldn't be able to resist showing up with her seizure team. The deputy stepped out, took one look at the documents in my hand, and turned straight to her. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you and your group are trespassing. Leave now, or I'll have to place you under arrest." Karen's empire of intimidation had just crumbled in front of everyone. Karen froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. She glanced at her board members for backup, but they avoided her eyes. The sheriff wasn't playing games. He had already rested his hand on his holster, ready to act if she kept pushing. For once, Karen backed down. She stomped her foot, hissed something under her breath, and ordered her little entourage back to their SUVs. They scattered fast, with the tow truck peeling out of my driveway like he couldn't get away quickly enough. The sheriff lingered, though, and after confirming my documents were legitimate, he gave me a nod. "You're in the right here, and if they come back, call us immediately." He paused. "Also, about that fraudulent notice, they may have bigger problems than you realize." That was all I needed to hear. The very next week, the county prosecutor's office sent me a copy of a formal inquiry they'd opened against the HOA. Turns out, Karen had been pulling similar scams for years, jacking up fake appraisals, fining residents with made-up violations, even threatening to seize homes she had no claim to. My case was just the boldest stunt yet, and when investigators dug deeper, the whole rotten system started unraveling. Board members flipped fast, handing over emails and records that showed Karen masterminding the schemes. She had been pocketing fees for herself, using HOA funds for personal luxuries, and intimidating anyone who dared to question her. Within months, the HOA was slapped with lawsuits from multiple homeowners, state fraud charges, and a mountain of fines that made Karen's $10 million demand look laughable. The board was dissolved, assets were frozen, and Karen herself was dragged into court. I showed up for the hearing, binder in hand. Not because I had to, by then the evidence against her was overwhelming, but because I wanted to see the look on her face when the judge read the verdict. The judge's words were like music. This HOA acted beyond its legal authority, and its leadership engaged in fraudulent practices. The board is hereby dissolved, and restitution will be made to all affected homeowners. Karen, she didn't just lose her position. She was ordered to repay hundreds of thousands in damages and faced criminal charges for fraud and harassment. The woman who once strutted onto my property like she owned it was now reduced to pleading with lawyers, her empire of intimidation gone, and my cabin safe, secure, mine. 25 cents well spent. The funny thing is, neighbors who once believed Karen's lies started coming around to apologize. They admitted how scared they'd been of her, how they'd gone along just to avoid being targeted. Now, with the HOA gone, the entire community finally breathed free. Karen thought she could steal a cabin with intimidation and fake paperwork. Instead, she lost her entire kingdom, while I stood on my porch watching the lake glisten, knowing that sometimes the smallest investment can bring the biggest justice, because the truth is, the cabin was never worth $10 million. But seeing Karen lose everything? That was priceless. Karen thought she could steal a cabin worth $10 million, but all she really did was destroy her entire HOA. Justice served. If you loved watching Karen's downfall, make sure to smash that like button so more people see these insane HOA battles. Comment below. What would you do if someone tried to steal your property with fake rules? I'll be featuring the best answers in the next video. And don't forget, subscribe to HOA Karen Stories and hit the notification bell, because the next episode, let's just say Karen hasn't learned her lesson yet, and you don't want to miss it.